I am a full-time tiny home dweller. I own a tiny house real estate consulting company called the Tiny House Concierge. So tiny house is my life, tiny house is my work, tiny house is my whole deal. Tiny house was not my original plan. It was a beautiful, unexpected happening though. I was focused on housing because I knew I didn't want to spend the majority of my life indoors behind a desk working for somebody else so that I could maybe or maybe not retire, just not enjoy my life. I knew I needed something to rearrange my situation somehow so that I could have time and energy and health and really spend my life living. That kind of sent me on a deep dive to look at the different pieces of my life. Hello, my name is Alaska and this is my tiny house. I live a couple hours outside of Seattle, Washington, and I call my house the Tiny House of Peace. My tiny house is 26 feet long by 8.5 feet wide and 13.5 feet tall. I purchased my house in a secondhand sale. It was built by the original owners of Mint Tiny House Company in Canada, and I have been living in it for 5 years. I'm parked here on family land, and I feel very lucky to be next to all of this beautiful lavender. I pay $500 a month in land rent, and I have full hookups here on the property. The exterior of the house is cedar siding with a metal accent. Come on inside. Welcome to my tiny house. This tiny house is 267 square feet, and that includes the sleeping loft. I call it the Tiny House of Peace because that is the first thing that I felt when I stepped inside this home. I absolutely love my layout. A common question that I get is, what would I change about this tiny house? And the real answer is absolutely nothing. I am a huge fan of the L-shaped couch because it gives you what I call good views and long views. So if I sit here, I'm looking down the length of the house, which honestly is my favorite thing to look at. But I also have the option of sitting here and looking straight out a window. So either way, I have a good view and I have a long view. So this is the living area. The couch is all storage, so all of this opens up. This couch is by Home Reserve and the model is the Juvie. And then the two storage ottomans, these open up, keep my tools in there, and I have my ski gear and bulky stuff in this one. The storage ottomans are great because they serve so many purposes. They are ottomans, of course. They are storage, of course. They are also my coffee table, and they also pull out like this for guest seating. Behind the couch, I have a dining table. I can sit 4 people, absolutely no problem. So the projector was in the house when I bought it. I absolutely love it for movie nights because I have a 72-inch TV situation that turns my entire tiny house into my own personal movie theater. 100% would recommend that if you can swing it. I will say that because there's a little bit of what I call Rubik's cubing involved in setting up the projector screen, I tend to save it for things like movie nights or the Super Bowl rather than day-to-day TV watching. That I still typically do on my laptop. Up above this area is my storage loft. The first owners actually used it as a second closet, which is why there's that bar up there for clothing storage. It doesn't have an operable egress window, so it's not a legal sleeping area, but it is a great place to have extra storage. In my case, I didn't need the extra storage, and I see that view every day when I come down the stairs in the morning, so I just use it decoratively. Over in this area is my office area, and I really love this desk. This was made by Rob Hassett of Rob Hassett Designs. If you know Lindsay Wood, the tiny home lady, her brother. And I love it because he made it so that I can flip it up, put that out of the way, I push the chair, and now the projector can come down for movie night. One thing I love about this area is that there is a heater right on my feet, which makes it a beautiful place to work in the winter. I have 2 heaters in the house. One is here, one is in the bathroom. It's all electric heat. And then up here, I have a window unit AC for cooling.
Living in a home on wheels is all about the freedom it offers. A flexible power source is essential to make the most of that, whether in a traditional RV or a tiny house. That's why I'm so stoked about Bluetti's amazing new Apex 300, designed for life on the move. It's gotta be the smartest portable power station out there. Definitely features the world's longest battery lifespan. The Apex 300 is built around the idea, start simple, scale smart, offering a lower entry cost while allowing for flexible expansion for home backup, RV, or off-grid power needs. It packs a massive base power punch and is unbelievably scalable. Get up to a staggering 58 kilowatt hour capacity and an 11.5 kilowatt output power. It also supports high power DC AC devices and RVs with a 30 amp outlet and the hub DC panel. Add its unmatched solar input and charging capabilities, and your home on wheels is ready to rock off-grid self-sufficiency. You know you want to learn more about the amazing Apex 300 power station. See the link in the description today to save big.
Over here we have the kitchen, and I absolutely love this tiny house kitchen because it is so easy to cook in. I cook all the time, and I have a theory about what makes this tiny house kitchen layout so great. My theory is that because we read left to right, it makes sense to our brains to move that direction and to continually move in one direction. So because of the way this kitchen is laid out, I can prep, cook, plate, clean, and then this is my drying rack, which is currently taken up by an herb garden. But in general, I move one direction, and that makes it really seamless for me to cook. It also makes it a lot easier if somebody is joining me. I can be positioned in one place and somebody else can be moving behind me. Nobody is doing this, and so that cuts the chaos in the kitchen. This drawer is probably my most used in the tiny house. I call it the junk drawer, but it's where I have anything that I am just going to use a whole bunch of times a day is going to be in that drawer. Below that, we have the dishwasher, which I love. Remember, I love to cook, so I needed a dishwasher to be able to make that work seamlessly. This is a Fisher Paykel drawer dishwasher. The thing is so silent that I have to put my ear up to it to make sure that it's working, which is key because if you live in a small space, those little noises can drive you crazy. So, great tiny house dishwasher. Worth every penny. I'm grateful this house came with open shelving because I really like to be able to see everything. I think this works better for people that have curated dish collections. If you have too many different types of things, you could have it falling all over the place, but as long as you can be conscientious with your dishware, the open shelving makes the space feel so much more airy. People ask me if it gets dusty. It really doesn't. An air filter will fix that problem. Over here we have the range and the oven. Both are gas. This vent hood here has been awesome. It has different levels so that you can keep the smoke out. And in here you'll find the trash and recycling. Love having that on a drawer. Just basic silverware. It's a little bit full, but in general, I'm really happy with the amount of storage in this home. I will say that the one storage decision I had to make was which appliances to keep in terms of those fun like gadgets. So for me, the waffle iron did not make it, but my air pop popcorn machine, blender, and rice cooker all live here. This is one of my favorite parts of the kitchen. This is a pull-out pantry. If you are considering a tiny home, I highly recommend you have a pull-out pantry. If your builder can't create one, at least get a little 6-inch gap like this so you can buy one of these on Amazon. This one I actually made. I put 2 bar carts together and then I sawed off the metal straps and I replaced them with these little bungee things so that I can easily pull things out. People ask me if I actually use these and if the food gets stale. Yes, I do use them, and no, it doesn't because I eat it. I put the cute stuff on top, and then I put the less cute stuff on the bottom so that when I'm sitting on the couch, I have this view, and then when I actually need to cook, I have access to these things. I like this system over cabinets because I'm really short, and if cabinets are up here, I'm gonna be digging through for snacks. They're falling on my head. Like, this is a better system. I can see everything, it's organized, and it doesn't fall on me. My personal definition of the tiny house lifestyle is when you live in a way that's better for your body, better for the planet, less expensive, and more fun. And this herb garden is all of those things. It's better for my body, it's not sprayed with pesticides, it's better for the planet because I'm not trucking herbs all the way across the country. It's less expensive over time because I'm not buying $5 herbs that are wilting in plastic, and it's absolutely more fun. Over here is the stackable washer and dryer. I absolutely love it. I am so happy I did not go with a combo unit. I have a king size bed and I can do king size bedding and blankets and towels and jeans and all the things and get them bone dry. I'm just really happy with the stackable unit. Over here is where I have the laundry basket, and this spot on top of the refrigerator has been really great because it allows the laundry to kind of breathe. I really studied how I spent time, money, and just my energy. And the way that I did that is I tracked my expenses for a year, including cash, to find out exactly down to the cent where my money was going. And then as far as time and energy, I would set the timer on my phone and I would just write down everything that I did in a certain amount of time to just really look at that list. And then finally I started looking at the things that I owned. So I created this crazy spreadsheet and I just put everything in it. I put silverware, clothes, my car, like everything. And I calculated what that thing cost to come into my life, how it came into my life, and then the approximate resale value of it. And I got a little bit crazy. Like, I was calculating the resale value of like a half a jar of mayonnaise, which I think I estimated to be like 50 cents, which I think may have been overpriced, although maybe not now with inflation. Long story short, this information taught me that housing was our biggest expense. And so that also made housing our biggest opportunity to change the script, right? And to have a different impact. That time when I was doing all of this, I lived in Orange County, California. My half of the rent was about 56% of my take-home pay. I didn't even qualify to get an apartment on my own. So I was like, okay, something has to change. I looked into everything. I looked into van life. I looked into living in an RV. I looked into living in a different country. I looked into house sitting. I looked into buying a house, renting out the other bedrooms, like every conceivable way of using housing to change my financial situation. A tiny house came up a couple times, but I hadn't really honed in on it. I was living in Kansas by then, and houses were a lot more affordable in Kansas than California. So I was really excited. I was trying to buy a house, and it was just like the universe did not want that story for me. Every house that I put an offer on or like went to try and make it happen, like something was always wrong. There was a major issue with the foundation and it just wasn't worth fixing, or one had a title problem on it, or I got outbid a bunch of times, or like it just kept falling through. And I remember just crying in the car with my mom and her just saying, the right house is out there. And I was really just sad. And so I got online to look at tiny houses because I was like, I need a break from this house buying thing, and tiny houses just make people happy, right? Like, and so I just wanted to look at cute houses, and I got on tiny house listings and I saw this house, and immediately I fell in love with this tiny house. Called this woman and I was like, you don't understand, this is my house. Please do not sell it. Let me put in, if somebody makes an offer, just hold it. I want to make a competing offer, like I'm driving to Texas right now. And I'd never been in a tiny house. And I came in and I was like, oh, it's a little smaller than I thought. A little panicked. And I just looked at it and she said, well, where are you staying tonight? And I said, I don't know. I had not figured that part out yet. And she was like, why don't you stay here? And she said, when I leave, I want you to open the windows, light the candle, and just be. She was like, you'll get it. And she left, and I did as she said, and like, it's late afternoon, like golden sun's coming in, the breeze is coming in, I lit the candle like she said, and I just sit here on the couch and I cry my eyes out for like 3 hours. I can't. I'm totally overwhelmed by the level of peace that I felt. Like this is the house that's gonna make everything okay. And it has. It really has. So, no. It has. It put my life together at a time when I really needed it. And it gave me a very fun and unexpected career. And it is my favorite place in the world. So I call it the tiny house of peace. So back here is the bathroom. Now the toilet is double plumbed, which right now you can see I have a traditional flush toilet in here, but the house was built to be plumbed to support either a traditional toilet or a separate waterless toilet. So if I want to switch this out for the separate, I can do that easily. But that flexibility has allowed me to take parking spaces that had sewer hookups and then also ones that didn't. So it increased my flexibility with regard to parking. That being said, I am very grateful to have a traditional flush toilet because that can help with legally parking your tiny home. Over here we have the shower. It's just a simple stand-up shower with a sliding door. The shower is very comfortable for me, although I will say that I am 5 feet tall. But the owners who owned the home before me were both 6'1", so. Over here in this corner, we have the vanity and the sink. It's pretty small, but it's worked well enough for me. I do occasionally have to be careful to not hit my head on this medicine cabinet, but I am glad to have the medicine cabinet because the storage is great. So this is everyone's favorite part of the tiny house of peace, including mine. This is a 2-person infrared sauna. This was in the house when I bought it. It wasn't part of the build, it was added after, but special outlets were put in the house to support the sauna. I am a huge sauna fan. Health is one of the things that I've built my tiny house lifestyle around, so it was really important to me. The sauna also is important for another reason, and that is that I have a sister with chronic Lyme disease, and sauna therapy was a big part of her treatment. And there was a time period when I didn't know what the future looked like, and so in the back of my mind, I wanted to have a house that could support her as well. And this tiny house just happened to come with the biggest piece of medical equipment that she needed. In a second, I'll take you up to the loft, but first I want to show you the great storage area in the stairs. This is my clothes closet. In here, these are all my clothes except for my ski wear. So I don't have another closet anywhere else. There's nothing in storage, nothing in bags. So it does require that I be a little bit of a minimalist, but that's worked out pretty well so far. I have my shoes down there. And then up here, I have little details like my purse and my jewelry box. This is the utility closet in here. It's not super well organized at the moment, but this is where I keep my vacuum, cleaning supplies, trash bags, my little Swiffer, things of that nature. The only thing this does not fit is the mop, which maybe you saw it in the bathroom. That's kind of a funny tiny house thing that I commonly see, is that no one quite knows where to put the mop, including me. So these steps are storage steps. In here is the Costco drawer, and I don't know if you can see how deep that goes, but it's almost 2 feet down and then 2 feet wide. And then this is the story of how I am able to live in a tiny house and shop at Costco. So it's pretty full right now. It's not normally quite this full, but I just did a big bulk buy. So I do have to scrounge around in there, but this is not something I do every day. Everything I'm going to use regularly is going to be up here with the pantry. So this is more like bulk storage. And then down here, this is stuff that I'm going to grab on my way out of the house. So in here I've got like sunscreen, just anything I'm gonna need in a hurry. So this is the tiny house loft bedroom. It is a king size bed you see up here, which means I don't have a ton of room on the sides for storage, but I don't really find that I need it. I don't get dressed up here, so I don't need any kind of clothes or anything. At the base of the bed, we have a TV. I'll be honest that I don't really use it that much, but it's nice that it's here. I sleep really well up here. I love the feeling of being in a tree house. I usually open the skylight at night and I open the windows on these sides at night, so I have a breeze coming through here. It really does feel like I'm sleeping outside in a way, which I love. I also feel really safe sleeping up high. As you can see, I have no problem with the ceiling height up here. Even if I'm over here, I have room. The only thing I use this area for, though, is sleeping. Like, I'm not hanging out here during the day or trying to work up here, so it really is just a sleeping loft. One more thing that I should mention is that because my mattress is on the floor, and especially because I live in a humid area here in the Pacific Northwest, I have a coconut core mattress pad under the mattress to prevent mold. So I call myself a tiny house real estate consultant. I was a real estate agent at one point. I am no longer an agent. I am a tiny house real estate consultant. It's a totally made up job being a tiny house concierge, but I do it because somebody needed to. It started because I bought this house. So I had a real estate license, I bought this house, and when I went to do the due diligence and go through that sales process, I had no idea what to do because they didn't teach us about tiny homes in real estate school. And this had a trailer component, and I was just like, what do we, it wasn't real estate, it's personal property, but it's a house. So I had a lot of questions about how to do the due diligence, what constitutes an ownership document, you know, what kind of sales paperwork are we using here, what type of inspector should I be hiring? And at every stage when I went out to try and find answers, nobody knew how to help me. And so from the get-go, I was finding myself in a position of having to educate the people who were supposed to be helping me figure these things out. And I kind of knew where in the home buying process people could be vulnerable. So I knew what to protect myself against. I just had to manually go in and create those systems. You know, like if I pay the seller, I need to make sure that seller pays the lender so there's not a lien on my home. Or the couple that was living in it, they were engaged, he'd been living in it since the beginning, but only her name was on the sales paperwork, but I wanted to make sure he absolutely knew the house was being sold. So I was very careful in that process, and it actually took me about 3 months to figure out how to and to execute the sale because there were just so many components. I ended up having to teach an inspector what a tiny home was and then pay his rate and bribe him with a $50 gift card for cheeseburgers. It was Texas, so it was Whataburger, to get him to come out and look at a tiny house. And he was like, look, I can't inspect the trailer. Or I was like, look, just tell me it won't fall down. Like, and so we just kind of got it done. And then working with the DMV, that was a whole process of, are they gonna title it for the trailer or the house and the trailer? So that was a whole adventure. Anyway, we got it done, and by the end of it, I had all of this tiny house education and knowledge in my head. And meanwhile, I also saw people just handing over their life savings to people they met on Craigslist claiming to be a tiny house builder. And I was like, no! So yeah, there really wasn't any more thought into that. I saw a need. I was sitting on a lot of information, and I knew about tiny houses, I knew about real estate, I knew how to kind of put the pieces together. So I set up the tiny house concierge and just started taking phone calls. And now I work with buyers, sellers, builders, developers, nonprofits, anybody and everybody who wants to either understand, buy, or sell a tiny home. My house cost $80,000 to build it new. I am the second owner, so I bought it secondhand 2 years later for $78,000 after it had been furnished. So today I would estimate my house would cost about $125 to recreate it as is. And so that's actually what I have it insured for now. The tiny house resale market has been really interesting. It can be a great way to save money. I would say you save about $20,000 to $50,000 buying a secondhand tiny home over buying a new tiny home. Sometimes you also get a higher quality product because the materials that people were using before inflation are typically heftier than the materials being used after inflation. So sometimes you can get a higher quality product for less money, depending on the house, which is a really great element of the secondhand market. Now, that being said, financing can be tricky with a secondhand home. There is financing available. You can get a personal loan, a line of credit, if you have the ability to borrow against traditional real estate or get money from family or friends. Those are all options potentially, but you're not going to have the same financing options that you would if you bought a new home. So with a personal loan, for instance, the max is often $100,000. You're probably looking at 10 to 13% interest rates. If you buy a new home that has a secured financing arrangement, and that's not every builder that can offer that, but if they can offer a secured financing arrangement that's attached to their product, you could look at a 25-year loan. It's gonna be the same interest rates, but 10 years versus 25 years really stretches out that payment and makes a huge difference in what you're gonna pay monthly. It's definitely getting easier to go tiny every day in the sense that more people are familiar with the concept of what a tiny home is, and we're starting to build out more of the infrastructure for the support services. So things like we're seeing more tiny home insurance options. We're seeing tiny house financing is coming to the table for the first time, in terms of a secured loan. We're getting more inspectors on board at this stage who are willing to look at a tiny home. So that's been really helpful and really positive. Unfortunately, with inflation, the cost of building a tiny home or building or doing anything has risen significantly. And that is heartbreaking, especially because some of the loans that are still out there do have ceiling limits. Often that's $100,000. And we all know that these homes can go over that quite often. So there's still some difficulties there. I think a lot more people are coming to the table and are wanting to play, wanting to participate, wanting to jump in to this movement. And I'm so excited about that. I'll say that people are trending bigger. People are wanting to go tiny, but not too tiny. And so that's bringing up a really interesting conversation about what is a tiny home. As of today, there is not a universally accepted definition or building standard associated with a tiny home. So we have different pocket places that have defined a tiny home, and we understand the general concept that it's a small, livable dwelling unit. But beyond that, we're still in this very fun place of having flexibility. I would say that overall 400 square feet or less and made of traditional building materials is kind of the running most common definition that I see people using, and I think that that's a good one. What is the purpose of having wheels on a tiny home? Does it serve us? Does it not? Will it continue into the future? I'll say that in my very specific situation, I am glad that I have had the wheels because I have moved several times. Started in Texas, I went to Colorado, now I'm in Washington. So I have moved my home perhaps more than most. I would say in the beginning of the movement, we saw more people traveling with their tiny homes. And the homes were smaller and it made more sense for people at that time to do that. Another benefit of having the wheels is that the person who owns the home doesn't have to be the person who has the land. So it provides opportunities for people to be a homeowner who can't quite swing being a real estate owner. And that is a really rewarding step for a lot of people and is a better fit for some people than an apartment or shared living situation. That being said, the wheels also can create some chaos when we try to park legally and live in it full time. Real estate is considered land and anything attached to the land. But what is attached, right? And this is where it gets really really interesting. And what we see with manufactured homes is people will use tie downs, skirting, sometimes removing wheels or axles or different things to quote unquote attach a detachable structure to land. So it's been really fun to watch that play out in tiny home world, and that's one of the areas that I coach people to challenge. If they get pushback from the county that it's not on a permanent foundation, I say, well, what is a permanent foundation? I would support anybody who wants to buy a house on wheels. I see it factoring in less. I'm seeing more people wanting to sell their home in place than move it, even if it is on wheels. So that's been an interesting trend to watch. I don't know what direction it will go, but I love tiny houses on wheels. I love them off wheels.
Thanks for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian, and this is our DIY tiny house on our homestead in Oregon.
Looking for more tiny inspiration? Watch these videos. But if you're looking for something specific, visit our channel homepage to browse tiny homes by category.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Hope to see you soon.